After a good first season at Chelsea and big investment in the summer, things are looking rather dicey for Frank Lampard at Chelsea. So, if the worst happens and he leaves the job, who could replace him in the hot seat in West London? Well, today I'm going to bring up 7 potential candidates for the job. First up, and it's Julian Nagelsmann, obviously quite a popular name with many young managers at the moment for what not only he did at Hoffenheim but for RB Leipzig as well. At the moment he's got the German side playing a brilliant free-flowing attacking brand of football that saw them make it all the way to the semi-finals of the Champions League last season. He, in doing so, became the youngest manager ever to take a side to the last 4 of Europe's premier competition. The thing is with picking Nagelsmann is that although he's doing very well abroad, he's very young, exciting, attacking coach, it's still just a little bit of a risk to bring him over to England at the moment. The reason being is because I'm drawing a direct parallel between him and Kai Havertz. Nagelsmann's the coach, Havertz is the player. They both did very well in the Bundesliga, both show very good qualities and could move for big money and a lot of potential. And we've seen how it's worked out for Havertz, not well so far. Of course, there isn't a direct translation between the two. Like, there's not a complete and utter comparison between how well Havertz is doing and how well Nagelsmann will do. After all, he did get the best out of Timo Werner at Leipzig, so that could be a good thing for Chelsea fans. I'm just not so sure whether it's worth risking another young coach, especially who hasn't been in the Premier League so far. That's kind of what they're doing with Lampard, although fair enough, Lampard didn't have much experience before the Chelsea job, and I'm not sure Nagelsmann will be number 1 on the list. He is number 1 on this list, but we'll move on very quickly to the second option. And that second option is Thomas Tuchel. Of course it is, because he's just left PSG, replaced by Mauricio Pochettino, the German who formerly coached Mainz and Dortmund, is now a free agent. Would he be a good choice for Chelsea though? He does have experience at coaching some of the biggest and best and highest paid stars in the world, and a lot of trophies at PSG to match, although some of the domestic trophies are a bit of a given for the French champions. What he did with PSG though, taking them all the way to the Champions League final, if we're considering Nagelsmann, then you've kind of got to consider Tuchel as well. He is a very good coach who plays a very good style of football. Having said that, the style of football that he's been playing quite recently doesn't necessarily fit the Chelsea players at the moment. I'm not so sure whether or not it would require another massive haul of players, something that Roman Abramovich may not be so keen to do after spending over 200 million in the summer to help back Frank Lampard. After all of this though, like I mentioned before with Nagelsmann, the fact that Tuchel is German means that he knows very well all about Timo Werner and about Kai Havertz as well, so he may be able to bring the best out of them. Number 3 on the list, and yet again it's another former Dortmund coach, and actually one who lost his job this season as well, in Lucien Favre. Now I think this one is a bit more of an outside shot, but considering what he did with Dortmund with a group of very, very young players, it would be interesting to see him at Chelsea. They're definitely a good youthful squad who were given their chance by Frank Lampard, but maybe need to be taken to the next level, and that's something that Favre proved he can do at Dortmund. He couldn't quite topple the league leaders in Bayern Munich, despite the fact he had 2 second-place finishes in the league. But certainly there were times where they were playing some scintillating football, especially in the Champions League. On top of this, just think of how the likes of Jadon Sancho has come on, especially in the last season or so. And on top of this, there's also the likes of Erling Haaland, who of course had a brilliant campaign when he joined Borussia Dortmund. And there's other players to prove that maybe, just maybe, although it's an outside shot, Favre could take some Chelsea players to the next level. Next up, and we'll go for a Premier League manager. It's Nuno Espero Santo, and since Wolves have come into the Premier League, he and the team have been an absolute joy to watch. So it's no wonder he's actually being linked by some bookies with the job. The reason being as well is because he plays a completely different system. And although I did mention that maybe an overhaul is needed, there is still some quality in the Chelsea squad, which is kind of mirrored in the Wolves squad as well. The fact he plays mainly throughout his tenure at Wolves, 3 at the back could suit Chelsea, with the likes of Zuma, the experienced Thiago Silva, and Antonio Rudiger as well. The flying wing-backs that we've seen at Wolves with the likes of Ben Chilwell and Reece James also suit Chelsea, and having a focal point in the attack like Raul Jimenez is something that could be directly mirrored with the likes of Olivier Giroud or Tammy Abraham, with some quick wingers around him. Imagine the likes of, well, how well Traore did. Podence is in there as well. There's also Jota, who moved to Liverpool, and of course this season we've seen a brilliant run of form from Pedro Neto. Imagine the same thing, but with speedy, quick players the likes of Werner, Pulisic, Havertz, Ziyech. I really think this one actually on paper could work out. Realistically though, not on paper. Talking about real life, I'm not sure that Santo would leave the Wolves job just yet. 5th one on the list is the one you've all been expecting, because every single time a top manager leaves a top club, Max Allegri's name is mentioned. We spoke about it a million times. It looks as though this is really the only one left. PSG have replaced Tuchel with Pochettino. Manchester United are sticking with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and as for a few of the other jobs, doesn't quite look like Allegri is going to be muscling his way in just yet. The job at Chelsea is a brilliant deal, although last time they brought in a coach from Italy, in Maurizio Sarri, things didn't quite turn out so well. Despite this though, Allegri is a proven winner, has plenty of years of success behind him, and Chelsea could do no worse than bringing him in. The thing is, if he comes into Stamford Bridge, it's an obvious choice, and it's something that the Chelsea fans and the Chelsea players aren't going to be against. Like, they're bringing in someone with proven track record, so there's not really anything too, hands up in the air about it. It's quite a safe bet. The sixth one though is definitely not a safe bet, and actually, if the news is to be believed, Chelsea have already written him out of the race, despite the fact he was actually one of the favourites to take over the job, and it's former Chelsea youth coach Brendan Rodgers. That's right, before the Leicester days, before the Celtic days, the Liverpool days, who was it before that? Reading, Swansea I believe, he was a youth coach at Chelsea, but when he left the club, he did have a pop or two in the media at his former employers, so much so that Chelsea haven't forgotten it. Roman Abramovich has not forgotten it, and now 8 years after he made those comments about Victor Moses now joining a big club when he came to Liverpool, as opposed to staying at Chelsea, well, I think that they're still pretty mad at him and they're actually not going to look at rehiring him. Despite this, in my humble opinion, I think he'd do really well. I mean, you've seen what he's done at Leicester. He's done a brilliant job. I don't think he'll leave Leicester, but if Chelsea was somehow managed to tempt him back, forgave everything he said and brought him to the club, I think he really would do a fantastic job. Lastly and finally, of course, we had to mention, we're talking about Frank Lampard, a Chelsea legend being sacked. Why not bring in another Chelsea legend in John Terry? It would be a terrible idea. I have no doubt that John Terry is learning quite a lot as a coach at Aston Villa, but clearly they'll just be moving along the same lines as they would with Frank Lampard. A former legend, a former player, who's got a load of respect, not much coaching experience. In fact, Terry's got less than Lampard because Lampard had a season at Derby. Bringing him in would literally just be replacing Lampard with a like-for-like swap. If it's not working out now, it's probably not going to work out with John Terry either. There you have it then. You guys let me know which one of these coaches you think would be best to take over Frank Lampard, if you think he should be sacked at all. If the man who you think is the best for the job is not on this list, let me know in the comments section below. Check out everything else we've got going on Onefootball, but until next time, I'll see you guys later.